Mr. Chairman and Commander and gentlemen, thank you for all that you're doing. You know, I strongly believe that your examples of what it means to serve and sacrifice are certainly appreciated by all of us. But I think it's appreciated by all the American people. One of the most powerful things we see every year in the Congress is all of you, this entire body, walking the halls of Congress. It is just powerful, and I love it. So thank you so much for what you're doing. You know, it is kind of like a big family. You know, all of us who have served. I'm proud to say my father was a naval officer. I had 5 uncles and great uncles, all served in World War II. And one of the things I like to remind my own daughters in terms of service is that although you might not be wearing the uniform, you, the VFW, you represent not only the veterans of foreign wars, but the families. So I always like to remind folks, even if you haven't worn a uniform, if you're a spouse or son or daughter of one of you who are in the audience, you're serving your country. You've served your country just like the person wearing the uniform. So I know we've been doing a lot of applauding, but how about we do a round of applause for our family members. I'm going to take the prerogative also to, do a little, we all do our shout out to our state, Alaska. We have an enormous population of veterans. We're a little bit bigger than Connecticut. I don't know if Senator Blumenthal is still here. But if there are any of my VFW brothers and sisters from Alaska who are still in the audience, if you can stand, I'd love to recognize you for a round of applause. There we are. So I wanted to talk about the issue of the transition to civilian employment. And, we talk about homelessness and suicide, and those are all really important areas to focus on. But I think the best way to deal with some of the challenges that we have is to make sure our veterans get good jobs, get good paying jobs. And the last time I was recalled active duty in 2013, I came back to Camp Lejeune. Went through the TAMP classes, and they were pretty good. I had already had a job lined up, so I wasn't that focused on it. I was getting back home to see my wife and daughters. But I think we could do a lot better in this area. And it would be really great, and I know we don't have a lot of time in the hearings, but I know you mentioned it in your initial testimony, but what do you think are the biggest barriers to successful transitions? I've talked to General Kelly about this. We have veterans who could go into Homeland Security, or our veterans have such great skill sets. They go into, the building trades unions. What do you see as ways that we can do a much better job? Because whether it's moving into a federal agency, moving into the private sector, moving into state, government-focused areas, and what do you think we can do in Congress to help with that transition and making sure our veterans who leave active duty or leave the reserves with these incredible skill sets, talk about a win-win for the vet, for the employer who's going to hire them. How can we do a better job in that? Because I think we're only scratching the surface, and I think we get good jobs for our veterans. Then we'll start to take care of homelessness and suicide and other things.
Well, the good news is that veteran unemployment is down. That's the good news. But is there more to do? Absolutely. One of the areas is the transition itself, the TAP program. When it was made mandatory, that was good. All the service members, as they transition from active duty back to a civilian career, are required to go through the TAP program.
And are you satisfied with how that's working?
That's where I'm going.
I take it that's a no.
I think, quite honestly, the materials that are being provided are excellent materials to ready these troops as they come back into civilian life. But what we have to be very, very careful of is the way it's delivered. If I'm seeing TAP only at the end of my career, I see it as nothing more than a checklist that needs to be completed so I can get on the bus, or I can get on the airplane, and I can get out of there, and I can go on with life. TAP needs to be seen. TAP needs to be worked throughout the Department of Defense from the day a person puts the uniform on to the day that they take the uniform off. It needs to be a transition the entire way through. We spend so much time training somebody how to enter the military, and we spend so little time training them how to leave the military. And if I could, in regards to when they do leave, and I am so proud, I'm a retired pilot with United Parcel Service, and there's a lot of other great corporations out there that are doing some incredible things to make sure that when veterans do leave, that these large corporations do see the value, do see the skill sets that coming out of the military, and whether they make a transition through getting their higher education prior to then joining and starting a career, or whether they go straight from the military, and many of them are coming out with their degrees already in place. Large corporations are missing an incredible opportunity to grab these highly skilled, mission-oriented individuals. And I'm proud to say, and if I could, sir, recognize with us today, Pat O'Leary, the Veterans Affairs Manager for United Parcel Service, took his own time to come here to be at the hearing.
Well, thank you, Commander. We want to work with you on this. I couldn't agree more. We need to do a lot more. I think it's going to be a win-win. And, you know, in my own experience, I've seen Marines getting out, combat veterans, have led Marines in combat, and they get out and they're saying, well, I don't think I have a skill set. And, you know, I've looked at one of my guys saying, I remember saying, you have more skills than a Harvard MBA. Truly. We just got to make sure. We just got to make sure we know how to translate that and get them the jobs that then they can excel in the private sector. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.